Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're going way deep into the world of Neville Goddard,
Yeah.
a mid-20th century spiritual teacher who really shook things up. I mean, some of his ideas about, well, us are really something else.
Yeah.
So we've got a lecture of his queued up. It's about this really interesting concept of the Christ within. Get ready. This one just might turn everything you thought you knew completely upside down.
It's a fascinating, really fascinating concept. One of the things that makes Goddard so interesting is that he takes these ancient spiritual ideas, and I mean really ancient,
Yeah.
and he makes them intensely personal.
Right.
Instead of talking about Christ as some kind of distant historical figure, he's saying that Christ is an aspect of us, like literally within us.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm intrigued already.
It's pretty wild.
So how does Goddard even arrive at this whole idea of Christ being within each of us? Where is he getting that from?
Well, he starts with this line from the Bible, God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself. But then he takes it in a completely unexpected direction. He's saying that Christ isn't separate from us, but is actually an aspect of our consciousness,
Yeah.
and that it lives within each and every one of us.
And that aspect of consciousness, according to Goddard, is our imagination.
Yes.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And it really does raise so many questions. If our imagination is truly divine, like he says, then what does that even say about our own creative power? How does that change our understanding of who we even are, what we're even capable of?
That's a great point. It's not just a theological idea like sitting around debating it. It really does have some real implications for how we live our lives.
Absolutely.
So how does this idea of Christ within connect to our understanding of God?
Well, Goddard uses this passage from Psalm 110 to kind of illustrate it. And the psalm talks about the Lord speaking to my Lord, which seems a little like, a paradox. But Goddard says that the Lord refers to the ultimate, the universal God, while my Lord represents our own human individual imagination. So it's almost as if he's saying that God is having this conversation with himself through us.
So God isn't this distant, all-powerful being up in the clouds somewhere, but is actually working through our own thoughts and imaginations.
Exactly. And this leads to another one of Goddard's, you could say, mind-bending ideas.
Okay, lay it on me.
The reversal of order.
Okay.
We usually think of God as the father and humanity as the child, right?
Yeah, pretty standard.
But Goddard, he flips it on its head. He actually suggests that we, by realizing our true nature as God, are actually the fathers of the Christ within us.
Wait, so instead of God creating us in his image, we're actually creating the experience of Christ through our own consciousness.
That's the idea, yeah. It's like we're giving birth to this divine aspect of ourselves. It's a huge shift in perspective.
It is.
If we are truly the fathers of the Christ within, then what does that say about our responsibility for shaping our own reality? It's such a huge question that Goddard raises.
That's pretty heavy stuff. Okay, so we've got this idea of Christ as our imagination and this reversal of the traditional God-human relationship. But how does that all play out in our everyday lives?
Right.
I mean, things aren't always sunshine and roses, are they?
No, they're not. You're absolutely right. Life can throw us some curveballs.
Yeah.
But Goddard says that these challenges, these tests we face, are actually crucial to our spiritual growth.
Okay.
They're not a punishment from God, but rather like opportunities to expand our awareness of our own divine nature.
He even uses the example of Jacob. Jacob, who was called the apple of God's eye, even though he was considered small and kind of imperfect.
Right.
So our flaws and our struggles, they aren't a sign that we're somehow separate from God.
Not at all. Goddard's saying that they're part of the journey.
Yeah.
Part of the process of becoming who we truly are. Think of it like this. If we were already perfect, there would be no room for growth. There would be no need for this whole, elaborate play of life. You know what I mean? The challenges that we face are kind of what refine us, what help us uncover the hidden God within.
So these tests are like this refining fire, helping us to burn away all the impurities and see our true selves more clearly.
That's a great way to put it. And that actually leads us to another concept that Goddard brings up, this idea of having, clean hands and a pure heart.
Right.
And he connects this to Psalm 24, where it says that, only those with clean hands and pure hearts can, ascend the hill of the Lord.
But Goddard doesn't see this as some kind of external purity, right? It's
Yeah.
not about just following a set of rules or doing rituals.
Right.
It's something deeper than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's talking about an internal state of being. It's about overcoming, those negative thoughts, those desires and impulses that can cloud our awareness
Yeah.
of, our true nature. He says it's about aligning our thoughts and actions
Right.
with the God within us.
He even shares a little story about his wife catching a butcher, like making a pricing mistake in their favor.
Right.
And they could have easily just, saved some money, but instead they pointed out the error.
Oh, wow.
It seems like such a small thing, but it really highlights that idea of clean hands and a pure heart, doesn't it?
It really does. And it shows how these tests can just pop up in the most unexpected places.
Wow.
It's not always about some big grand gesture or making dramatic sacrifices.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about those, everyday choices, those little moments where we have to decide, am I going to act in alignment with, my highest self?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I going to just give in to, temptation?
And Goddard's point is that we don't have to struggle to achieve this kind of purity all on our own. He says God actually works through us to bring it about. It's not about, white-knuckling our way to some kind of righteousness, but rather surrendering to that divine power that's within.
It's such a beautiful idea. We're not alone in this journey. Like, God is with us every step of the way, guiding us, supporting us, and ultimately transforming us
Yeah.
from the inside out.
Yeah.
But this leads to an even more radical concept that Goddard explores.
Yeah.
This idea that God plays all the parts in this grand drama of life.
Yeah, that's where it gets really mind-blowing, right?
It is.
He's not just talking about God working through the good guys. He's saying that God is experiencing everything, the light and the shadow, the saint and the sinner.
He's challenging that traditional image of a separate, judging God.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying that God isn't standing apart from creation, handing out rewards and punishments. Instead, God is immersed in the experience of being human, experiencing the full spectrum, of emotions, actions, and consequences.
So even the people who do terrible things, the ones who cause pain and suffering, they're all part of God's experience. I have to admit, that's a tough pill to swallow.
It is a really difficult concept to grasp, especially, when we're confronted with those harsh realities of the world. But Goddard suggests that this perspective can lead to a really profound understanding of forgiveness.
Okay.
If God is experiencing everything, both the good and the bad, then ultimately, we're all part of that same divine tapestry.
So when we forgive others, we're essentially like forgiving ourselves.
Yes.
Because on some level, we've played all the parts, made all the mistakes, experienced all the consequences.
Precisely. And this brings us back to that central idea of, Christ is our imagination. If God is experiencing life through us, and our imagination is the tool through which God creates, then we have an incredible power to shape our own reality.
So even in the midst of challenges and setbacks, we can actually use our imagination to envision a better future.
Yes.
Not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
That's exactly what Goddard is saying. We're not passive bystanders in this grand play of life. We are active participants, co-creators with God. We're using our imagination to bring about a more loving, more just, and more harmonious world. It's a radical and really empowering message,
It is. So we've covered a lot of ground, Christ within, this reversal of order, those refining tests we face, God playing every part, and this immense power of imagination. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But Goddard doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
No. He introduces another, you could say, layer of complexity by bringing in this really enigmatic figure from the Old Testament, Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, the king of Salem,
Yeah.
priest of God Most High. Yeah, I remember him. What does this ancient figure have to do with Goddard's teachings?
Well, Goddard sees Melchizedek as this symbol of our ultimate state of being.
Okay.
Melchizedek is described as having no beginning or end, no genealogy. He's self-begotten, eternally existing, just like God.
So he's a kind of archetype, for our true nature.
Exactly.
This limitless potential that's within each of us.
Exactly. And Goddard links this realization to this concept of resurrection. He's not talking about a literal rising from the dead,
Yeah.
but rather an awakening to our true nature as God.
Yeah.
Like it's a shift in consciousness,
Yeah.
a realization of our inherent divinity.
So this resurrection experience, it's about recognizing that Melchizedek within, right?
Yeah.
That part of us that's always been whole and complete, eternally connected to the divine. It's about shedding those, limiting beliefs, and realizing our full potential as God.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And Goddard suggests that this realization comes through a process of revelation, of unveiling the truth that's always been present, but kind of hidden,
Yeah.
hidden beneath all these layers of conditioning and false beliefs. So this is like, finally seeing the face of the God of Jacob within ourselves.
That's a powerful image. And it leads to that final question that Goddard poses in his lecture, what does it truly mean to see that face? To fully embrace that reality that we are not separate from God, but actually an expression of God itself? That's a question that goes way beyond just intellectual understanding, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's about a direct experience, a profound shift in consciousness.
It is. And I think that's what makes Goddard's teaching so compelling. He's not just presenting a set of doctrines or beliefs. It's like he's inviting us on this journey of self-discovery, a journey of awakening to our true nature. He's giving us the tools to access that divine spot within and to use that creative power to transform our lives and the world around us.
Yeah, he really is.
And he reminds us that this journey isn't about achieving some kind of external standard of perfection, It's about embracing the fullness of who we are, flaws and all, and recognizing the divine potential within, well, every human being. It's about seeing the world through the eyes of love and understanding and realizing that we're all connected, we're all part of the same, like, divine tapestry.
Beautifully said, yeah. And, perhaps by embracing this truth, by using our imagination to envision a world where everyone is seen, seen and valued as an expression of God, we can play our part in reconciling the world to itself, just like Goddard suggests. It's a challenging task, but it's also an incredibly hopeful one.
It really is. Well, we certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Neville Goddard's ideas. From Christ within to the reversal of order, those refining tests we face, God playing every part, the power of imagination, and the Melchizedek within. Whew, it's been quite a journey.
It has been. And I hope it's inspired our listeners to, explore Goddard's work a bit further and to embark on their own journey of, self-discovery.
I hope so, too. There is so much to unpack in his teachings. And who knows, maybe we'll all catch a glimpse of that face of the God of Jacob within ourselves along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep imagining.